Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Yaakov Horowitz. I'm the director of Project Yes, and this is a public service of Project Yes. It's designed to create awareness and to empower you and train you how to speak to your children about abuse prevention, how to speak to them about personal safety, and to discuss research-based, proven techniques that are very simple and very appropriate and very tzniistic in a way to have these discussions with your children. It's timed now before summer camp, obviously keeping in mind that it's a good time to have these discussions with your children if they are going to day camp or summer camp. But it's really an ongoing year-round discussion that should be taking place, and most importantly, to allow you to really listen to your children so that they're build their self-confidence and that they're able to discuss things with you if there are any problems. This series is sponsored by Linda and Mark Karasik in memory of her mother, Ruth Rezi Bas Rav Tzvi. And I want to thank the Young Israel of Midwood, Michael, my dear friends, Michael and Estelle, and the Rav Rabbi Shulman for hosting and for providing the venue. Okay, let's get started. The basic outline of the talk, I'm going to spend about 20 minutes speaking about things that are specific to the issue of abuse. In other words, what are the issues that directly related to abuse that I think you ought to be telling your children. Then I'm going to be speaking for that'll be about 20 minutes. I'll spend about 15 minutes speaking about general parenting issues that relate to maintaining dialogue with your children. So the second part doesn't really have to do directly with abuse, but it's extraordinarily important that you have the type of relationship, an open relationship with your children, that they can share whatever's on their mind with them, and they get in the habit of discussing everything with you on a regular basis, good things, challenging things, everything in between, so that, chas v'shalom, if there's any problem, they can give you, you can have that type of interaction. So I really should do it the other way. I should give you the background first and then the abuse things, but I assume that you came for the real safety issues. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to spend about 15 minutes or so on general parenting issues, and then I'll be glad to take any questions, whatever's on your mind. I really would encourage you to take some notes, or just take a few bullet points of the topics that we're going to be discussing and what your takeaways should be in your discussions with your children. And we'll be working off that one-page handout that you have called Safe and Secure. That's an article that I wrote in Mishpacha magazine on the topic of abuse prevention. So let's get started. There are several messages, and again, as I said, I encourage you please to take notes and try to think about what you would like to do. I was an 8th grade Rebbe for 15 years. Before I started my yeshiva, maybe I should introduce myself. My name is Yaakov Horowitz. I live in Monsey. I'm the principal of a boys' yeshiva called Yeshiva Dar Chinayim. It's a boys' elementary school that I started 14 years ago. I'm also the director of a program called Project Yes, which I had the schus to start with Rabbi Shera Zechat Tzadik Uvracha, and with the support and guidance of the Meitzes Gedolei HaTorah. And over the past 14 years, we've done a number of programs to help children, and every single summer, I get a spike in calls from parents whose children were nebuch molested, much more so than during the year, because things are not as misudar as they are during the year. And it's not only sleepaway camps. Sleepaway camps probably have less than unsupervised bungalow colonies. You go away for a week, you leave your kids with someone they don't know, you're exposing them to a lot of new people and new faces and new opportunities for trouble. So every summer, I just keep getting phone calls. And a few weeks ago, I just decided, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm going to run around and speak in a few different communities and try to get the message out that these very simple techniques are helpful, they're research-based, they work, and as I said, again, I encourage you to do so. So number one is a very clear, these are messages that you should be getting across to your children. I'll speak a little bit later about how you should do this and what research shows are the best ways to do this. But the first thing is, nobody is ever allowed to tell your child of any age that they have a secret that they cannot tell their parents. Okay? That's number one. You tell your children, nobody is ever allowed to tell you not to tell mommy or tati, mommy or daddy, ima, abba, whatever term you use at home. It's a universal thing. that's a sign of tremendous trouble. I'm a school principal. I have discussions with my talmidim all the time. There is no set of circumstances in this world where I should ever tell a child, listen, let's just keep this between us, and don't go home and talk about it, because that's not good. Nobody should ever do that. No adult should do that. And does it work? So I'll tell you a story. I have a few stories. It's hard to believe. One thing that we have a barrier very often in this discussion of abuse prevention is that we have a hard time believing that our kids really listen to us. Okay? In Talmudic terms, you call it a kal v'chomer, right? You'll say, they don't listen to me when they're in front of me. I have a 12-year-old kid. I tell him to go to sleep. He says, whatever, I come in for dinner. He's always got an excuse. So why would I think he's going to listen to me when he's not in front of me, right? But it really does work. It really does work. And what I've been telling parents, to try to give you just a simple a way of thinking, an analogy perhaps. Imagine if you were to go out and take your family out to dinner. Imagine you go out to dinner in a local restaurant, and you'd all be eating soup. Your entire family, parents, children, let's say ranging in age from 3 to 15. Now, imagine that I walked in as an outsider, and I took a spoon, and I started sampling. Imagine just a minute, you didn't know who I was. I was a stranger. I just came over to your table and started taking food from sampling everybody's soup. How old do you think a child would have to be to say or think or look like, say, hey, what are you doing? It's mine. How old? 3, right? I would say somewhere between 3 and 5, right? A 5-year-old for sure would say that. They do it with their snack. They do it with everything else. So to feel a sense of ownership, this is my soup. You have no business putting your spoon in my plate. If you can walk out of here with the tools to train your children to think like their bodies are their soup. It's something that's theirs. My body belongs to me. That's all. This is all it takes. It's as complicated and as simple as that. If you get your children to understand that their body is private, nobody's allowed to touch them or take from them in that way. If they think of their body like it's the book bag or a snack of theirs. If I went into my kindergarten class and started popping snacks out of the kids' bags, you can believe very quickly somebody's going to say, hey, Rebbe, what are you doing? That's it. It's as simple as that. So some of the details obviously are required and in order, but feel empowered. It's all you have to do is shift their thinking to their own bodies as something that's theirs. You have to think like a predator. One of the chief justices, Supreme Court justices, said that a good lawyer and a good judge has to think like a criminal. Because people come before them who are criminals, they have to try to think like them. Let me give you a different way of looking at it. If you're building a new house, or you want to alarm your current house, you want to put a burglar alarm in your house, who would be the best person to look at your house and tell you what you should be doing? A thief, right? So you'd call a thief over and say, imagine if you went to a prison and you got a guy who was arrested for 30 burglaries at homes, and you say, tell me, how would you get into that? They'd be the best ones. They say, oh, those bushes are great. I can hide right behind them. Take the bushes down. Okay? So there was a guy in the secular world. It was one of my most powerful lessons in learning about this. I had the privilege of having several outstanding mental health professionals, Dr. David Pelkowitz, Dr. Vincent Tversky, whom I consulted with many times over the years. I prepared these talks with their guidance and articles that I've written. I'm not trained in the field at all. But the idea of being able to go and get these messages across are research-based and very clear.